Our fourth gospel writer depicted here is St. John. We know him as the son of Zebedee, as the brother of James. He was a fisherman who was called by Jesus. We know that he and James must have had a bit of a temper. Jesus nicknamed them Boanerges, the sons of thunder. That's in Mark chapter 3, verse 17. St. John, in his gospel, refers to himself as the beloved disciple, or the disciple whom Jesus loved. We know that he was there faithfully at the cross with Mary. We also know that he, along with Peter and James, were set apart at some very significant moments in the life of Jesus, like the transfiguration or the agony in the garden. There's also several other times when there was a particular healing when just those three were with Jesus. In the midst of his long life, St. John was exiled to the island of Patmos, which is where he wrote the book of Revelation. He survived many execution attempts and lived a long life. So he's known as the author of our fourth gospel, Gospel of St. John, also the letters of John, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and the book of Revelation. He is sometimes called St. John the Divine because of his great theological brilliance, and is often depicted with the eagle of the four living creatures from the book of Ezekiel because of the soaring majesty of the gospel. Right from the beginning, the gospel soars to the heights of great theology. I think his writings reflect especially a long life lived in reflecting on the life, the words, and the deeds of Jesus. If you think about St. John having reflected for many years on what he saw and heard, that certainly comes forth in the midst of his writings. And I think he is a great inspiration for those of us, especially that are living good, long, full lives, to think about how we continue to grow in the life of faith over time. Our next window depicts Luke, the gospel writer, the writer of the third gospel and the Acts of the Apostles, which gives a great description of the development of the early church. Our history tells us that Luke was a physician and an artist. We know that he was a companion of St. Paul. St. Paul mentions in 2 Timothy chapter 4 that Luke is the only one with me. We also see some places in the Acts of the Apostles where it is written in first person, like in chapter 21, where he says, "When we had parted from them, we set sail." St. Luke is often depicted with an ox in the picture with him, recalls back to one of the four living creatures in Ezekiel, the prophecy of the evangelists. And he's often matched with an ox because the gospel begins with Zechariah in the temple. Ox would have been one of the premium sacrifices that could be offered. The Gospel of St. Luke is often referred to as the Gospel of wine, women, and song. There are more banquets and more female people mentioned in the Gospel of St. Luke than in the other Gospels. We also have these wonderful songs. In chapter 1, the Song of Mary, called the Magnificat, begins, "My soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord." We also have the song called the Benedictus, the song of Zechariah. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, for he has come to his people and set them free." In Luke chapter 2, we have another song called the Nunc Dimittis. It's the song of Simeon after the presentation of Jesus in the temple. It begins, "Now, Lord, let your servant go in peace. My eyes have seen the salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of every peoples." St. Luke, in his writings, had the purpose of putting down a complete account and an orderly account. We have really a great gift from him of the gospel and Acts together, seeing the life of Jesus, hearing about his truths, his healings, his ministry, but then also seeing how that transformed into the early life of the church, the work of St. Peter, of St. Paul, of the apostles, the spread of the faith, and the growth of our Christian faith.